Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being patient with us. I'd like to call the February 10th Keystone Central School District Board of Directors voting meeting to order. We will start with flag salute and a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Elling,
Yes, I'm here, and I
Miss-
will remember that I said that.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Knopf,
Here.
Mr. Coke, Ms. Lynch,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mrs. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Strauss. 7 members present.
Okay, last week on February 3rd, after the work session, the board held a personnel or an executive committee meeting, to discuss personnel and legal matters from 8:06 PM to 9:13 PM. And this evening, we held an executive session to discuss legal matters from 6:16 PM to 6:26 PM. We are going to start this evening with a presentation from Susan Blesch and Sharon Berger for the Community Eligibility Program.
Yeah, I've asked Susan and Sharon to bring forward this presentation too, because it's an option for you to consider with regard to our food services program and community eligibility for breakfast and lunch. There are not a lot of slides to this, but it's a lot of information. And so I would just ask if the board members, if you think of some questions as we're going through, if you would just kind of write them down or, hold them to the end. I think we might answer a lot of questions by the time we get to the end, and then we'll entertain questions. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Susan and Sharon.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to talk first and lead you through the first couple of slides for this. So the purpose of Susan and me speaking to the board tonight is to educate the board about the Community Eligibility Program. So we wanted to talk to you about the facts and the benefits of the program and educate you to see if this is something that our school board of directors would like us to move forward with. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about what the actual definition of community eligibility is. It's a meal service option for school districts in low-income areas. It's open to all schools in Pennsylvania, and it allows us to provide free breakfast and free lunches to all students, regardless of their income eligibility guidelines. Schools would apply through a PDE application process. And I put on here that June the 30th would be the drop dead deadline that I would have to seek approval for PDE for. A little bit further in the presentation, you'll see some other deadlines. We're trying to be proactive so that we could bring this to the board's attention because it is time sensitive for us if this is the direction that you would wish to move forward with. The reimbursement system that we currently use now is based on a meal application process. The Community Eligibility Program is actually calculated through a formula-based system that deals with the number of students who are eligible for free meals because they're directly certified through the state. So districts must meet 40% of what PDE terms an identified student percentage. It's called an ISP. And right now, Keystone Central School District does qualify to for us to apply into the program. So that's what I was trying to show you here. That number has not changed over the years. The district has, as long as I have been here, we have continued to qualify for CEP. But in a little bit, we're going to talk to you about what some of the benefits of the program are going to be. The first thing is it does provide improved nutrition to economically disadvantaged children. It would eliminate the need to collect household applications. And right now, those applications drive the benefits for free and reduced children in this school district. So that would be taken completely out of the equation. That eliminates a lot of burden on our families and our community. And it also eliminates an administrative burden for all of the processing, all of the documentation behind the scenes that we must keep for those applications. There's also the potential to continue to have a higher breakfast and lunch participation because all students in the district would be able to have free lunches and free breakfast daily. It does simplify our counting and claiming. And I wanted to make sure that the board is aware, if this is the direction that you would like us to move forward with, it is a 4-year commitment. So once I would apply for it and PDE would approve Keystone Central School District, we are locked into this program for the next 4 years. And it does have the potential to eliminate further unpaid meal charge debt, which Susan and I are going to talk to you about in a little more detail. Where we're at right now and why we would like the board to consider the program is the USDA waivers that are in place right now. They are set to expire June the 30th. I have been to several conferences. I've been involved in some webinars with PDE. I do not hear any vibes or haven't been given any information that those waivers will be extended beyond June the 30th. Right now, students through these waivers have been allowed to eat for free since March of 2020. And we have not sent out unpaid meal charge debt letters to families since 2020 because of these waivers. That is a requirement in the current application program that we are in right now. So families not filling out as many applications with the free meal waivers show that if we continue on with the application process, and we would have the potential to have less applications, so less of our families may actually qualify for free and reduced meals. So that drives our revenue down. Right now, our student meal participation for both breakfast and lunch is higher, is expected because all meals are free. The next piece of this, I just wanted to put a couple timelines to make the board aware of where we would be at and how we would move forward through the program if this is something that you would like us to continue to pursue. The application process right now opens in April, and April the 15th is when there will be a list of schools that'll be published publicly that identifies all schools in the state of Pennsylvania. That is not new to the board. Anybody can go on there and you can see schools that qualify for CEP. May the 1st, PDE publishes a list of schools that meet that ISP threshold. That's when that document will become public. And June the 30th would be the drop dead deadline where I would have to make sure the application process has been completed. So I think right now I'm going to let Susan talk just a little bit more from the financial side to this and go into a little bit more detail.
We wanted to take a look at what the differences are between the CEP program and the current meal application process, because our federal funding, Title I federal funding, and also our E-rate reimbursement uses the percentage of poverty within the district for allocations. So one of the main concerns is if we move to this, does it reduce those allocations for us? And from what we have found, the answer is no. It does not hinder us in those allocations to move into this program. It actually could help us a little, where in the 4-year cycle, if our poverty percentage increases, we are allowed to use the increase rate. So if it goes from 49% to 60, we're allowed to then submit the 60% for Title I and E-rate reimbursements. If it should go down to 30, we are allowed to stay at the original application percentage. So if it went to 30, we could stay at 49 for the 4-year period. So we felt that that was good news, not affecting other programs and revenue coming into the district. We wanted to take a look at a financial analysis and say, what could this look like? We used October 1 data. That's a big month for pulling student data across the district. That's why we chose that month. We looked at estimated annual revenue under the CEP program, which you can see is right around 1.5 million, and then looked at what would that be under the current application process, and it looks like it's right around 1.7. So there is a risk of some financial loss to the food service fund. This would be all the income statement under Fund 51 when we talk about the loss or gain. There is a surplus currently in that fund that would absorb any deficit. At the point that the surplus would be depleted, general fund would be responsible for any kind of ongoing surplus from there on out. Currently, the general fund is responsible for unpaid meal debt. I don't know how many are aware, a few years back, I think it was 2016 or 17, PDE changed the rules around negative student lunch accounts. There's strict guidelines around collection of those monies, communication with the students, and withholding any kind of food for those students. So no matter what, if a student has a negative balance, they're still provided a hot meal every day from the district. We don't turn them away. We don't identify them in any way at the register in front of other children. That's all part of the new school code change. We've seen an increase in school meal debt. It usually was trending around 2,000 district-wide a year. It's currently sitting at 22,000. So as soon as that change took place, it jumped rapidly. Sharon and myself have looked at these financial projections in the past, right before COVID had happened, and the anticipated loss at that time was closer to 200,000. So as we moved into free meals for all, just because of the COVID and the waivers, we can see that it was a benefit to our students, more participation, more reimbursement. So I think if it's an ongoing process and program that we know that we're committed to for 4 years, we can hopefully mitigate some of that financial loss. However, wanted to be transparent and make sure everybody understood the financial side of things. In addition to that, on the other side, we also want to understand that the food service department is a student support for academics, for learning, for their whole person, I guess you can say. COVID exposed the food insecurities in our community. Sharon and her department launched a community feeding program the day after our schools shut down, and it was running nonstop until currently. So it's definitely a need. I think that we see the need in the community. We know that families are struggling, and we know that we want our students to eat both breakfast and lunch, regardless of their economic status at home. So I think it's more of a mind shift, where instead of looking at food service as a self-sustaining business within the school district, that it really is a student support service. And how can we make sure our students have what they need to be successful in the classroom? So I think the last comment I would say for the board is, if it's something that you're willing to support, we would ask for a vote to move forward with the application process in March. We have, some time for questions, answers. We can gather more information, anything like that between now and then.
Just a point of clarification on the two previous slides. So the number in red could be a potential risk of loss of funds. What you're not seeing measured in dollars is the amount of man hours, person hours that are put into managing the collection of the debts, the
The
phone
application
calls, the
process.
letters, the application process, entering the data. There is a lot of hours. And if you want, we can try to capture for you how many hours of labor intensity, how labor intensive it currently is across multiple people. So this isn't something that burdens one person. It's spread across all of the buildings. So I just wanted to say, I see the red dollars up there, but I also know that the amount of time that we're spending in the current process is intensive. So I'll turn it over to board members. It looks like Butch is waving. He beat you, Liz.
I just have one question. If you have every child getting fed for free, is there still a need for a cashier?
Yeah, we still need to account by student for those meals. So PDE, we still have to give them a count. Susan Blesh ate breakfast, she ate lunch, and then Susan Blesh is a student in our roster assigned to our schools. We
Or
still
bought
have
an
to
extra
tie-
bag of chips or
Yeah, I didn't know if you could
an
have that
apple.
person- If you could do away with that fund, that would reduce that money also.
But you still have your à la carte stuff too.
Yes,
We
and
do.
we
Yeah.
still have
We
à la
do.
carte. Yep.
And it is a requirement for PDE. We are bound to let PDE know how many breakfasts, how many lunches were sold in each building, in each school for legal purposes of that. So the cashiers would still be there, and you're absolutely right. We still want to and would continue to have à la carte because the goal behind community eligibility program is to help offset if there is a negative balance, is to drive that balance down through your à la carte sales for students and families that can afford to have those extras. So we would definitely continue those programs.
Thank you.
It's a good point. Sharon, this deficit does not account for à la carte sales. This is just the straight, if we were looking at,
Reimbursement.
straight reimbursement.
So we're saying that, are you saying that the parents won't have to do that application anymore? Then
Correct.
how are we going to
Right.
know if our percent goes up or down year to year?
Because the percentage of eligible students, that ISP number is driven at the state level. The state gives us data that says how many students in the 3,750 we have are directly certified without an application process for free meals.
Okay.
That's based on SNAP benefit eligibility, is it not?
Yes, as well as others. So there's also TANF if students are students are homeless, if they are runaways, that is also in that ISP that comes from the state.
Okay,
Back
so
to
that
the school
wasn't,
districts.
that wasn't based on the previous applications. Okay.
Correct.
So if we didn't follow through with this new application, once the current program expires, would we still go back to free breakfast for everyone, but not free lunch?
Correct,
And they would still have to fill out their application.
correct.
Yes.
If they are
Just-
not directly certified by the state, in order to be eligible for a free or reduced meal benefit, they would have to fill in an application process, and they haven't done it in over 2 years now. From, I'm not saying all of our families haven't, but the number of applications we've collected since COVID has dropped significantly. And
Because
those
they were already getting
applications
benefit.
drive the benefits,
Well,
which
I-
drive the reimbursement.
I remember well giving out popsicles and everything else to
Yes.
get
Yes,
those
to it, yes.
applications in
Mhm.
so we could
Yes.
drive our
Yes.
participation rates up.
Yeah.
So I remember those, and you're right, it is a lot of clerical work, just handling the application process.
Even with what the school code currently states regarding prohibiting districts from withholding meals and so forth, I still have to feel like there's gonna be some number of students out there who, through no fault of their own,
the application's not getting filled out. They don't
Correct.
have the money to buy it. And even though they're not going to be identified, they're not going to be penalized, they're still going to get a hot meal. They're afraid to go through that line and not be able to
Correct.
do
We've
something
seen
at the
that.
cash register.
Yeah, we've
Correct.
seen that too. And much less of that now the last 2 years because of everybody going through the line and getting their lunch and finding their seat. They don't feel so identified. Yeah.
It's not uncommon either for the younger students within one family to turn in the paperwork, but the older students do not. And
Understood that.
I've
I can
seen that
understand
happen
too.
across many districts.
It is, it's much more difficult, I think, getting this secondaries
Mhm.
back in than the elementaries.
So
Popsicles don't work the same.
No,
No, they
that's what I
don't.
was thinking.
They definitely don't want a popsicle at the high
Right.
school level.
No. So does any board member have any objections to this going on next month?
Elizabeth
Oh,
has
sorry,
some.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much. I have been a huge proponent for free breakfast and free lunch for all brick and mortar students forever. I didn't like the old setup. We had no choice. But this sounds like we're finally getting to the place where equality, people aren't going to, like you had mentioned earlier, about child not feeling comfortable because there's a situation out of their control. So I'm 1,000% for free breakfast, free lunch. I just had a couple of quick questions. And by the way, thank you for taking this on and bringing it to our attention. It's huge. I just want to, I'm sure the answer is yes, but I just want to hear it. I want to make sure that our kitchens and our staff and if there's anything else you need to help make this program work, that you feel there might be a little bit of a challenge or it might be more difficult, I don't know what that is. Please let the superintendent know, let us know through her, please, okay? So
Yes,
we want you to be successful on this.
understood.
Right. Does this program give you enough reasonable flexibility for food choices? And what I mean is, let's say you want to purchase more processed food because you got a better price, but the program says you only can buy organic, but you can't find organic. I just want to make sure that this gives you enough reasonable flexibility to source materials for the food, right?
Yes, the
Okay.
rules don't change in what we would be allowed to serve. The same types of vegetables, the frequency, the ounces, the rules are still the same, whether we continue with the application process or,
add salt.
yeah, Jackie likes salt. Always ask me for salt.
Okay, and one last question. Let's say we want to have after-school meals or summer program meals or holiday meals, something outside of the day-to-day program. Will this offer that, or do we have to find additional sources if we want to fill that slot also?
The holiday meals would remain unchanged if we go to CEP. I build those into our menus regardless of what program that we would have. To answer the second part of your question, PDE, regardless if you are CEP or you are application, you are only allowed to claim reimbursement for 2 meals out of a day. So PDE recognizes a snack as a meal. So any LEA, any school district is allowed to do a breakfast and a snack or a breakfast and a dinner. It is only 2 meals out of a day where you are allowed to claim reimbursement. So we would move to continue on with breakfast and lunch because that is when the majority of our students are here and in school. And
Right.
if we were to offer a snack, we would look for another avenue to support the food cost and the labor for those programs.
Okay, that was my question. That you would still have, if you wanted to, the flexibility to find alternative funding if there was going to be a summer program that needed food or after-school program.
Correct.
Yeah, that's funded separately.
Okay, thank you so much. Beautiful work. Very excited.
Do any board members have any opposition to us proceeding for consideration next month.
I think I can't see that there's anything really negative about it. I mean, you're basically extending what we're doing right now, except the process is going to change. And I can't really see our numbers dropping. If anything, they're probably going to go the other way. So I think, I kind of think it's a no-brainer. I think we probably should probably move ahead with it personally.
Yep, absolutely.
I felt one of the most powerful things about this was through COVID is where we really learned the truth about the food insecurities in families. And it was super apparent to us, and feel that it is important to provide at least 2 meals a day to every student, make it available to them regardless of financial need, because we know that students who are well-fed and well-nourished tend to do better in school. And I think it's also a reason that they want to be here during the day and come to school. So I appreciate the board supporting this notion, even though it may be at risk for dollars. This is a situation in which it's the right thing to do for our students.
Just out of curiosity, what's the participation rate for both breakfast and lunch?
Breakfast right now, without looking in the software system, I want to say it depends on the building.
Right.
The elementary schools do well. We were awarded a small grant from PDE about 3 years ago, and I'm going to mention Liberty Curtin, and I'm going to mention a past principal that was a driving force in that. Their breakfast participation in 2019 was about, I want to say they were right around 20%. With the grant and through some education, through teacher support, it was right when Dr. Martin first came on board, and she was a part of that and would go down to Liberty Curtin to show students that eating breakfast is a good thing. Their participation went to, I think it was 52%. I will be presenting that particular grant this summer to a group of food service directors. And I put the presentation together a few weeks ago. I can tell you that Liberty Curtin's breakfast percentage has held. When I last looked at the data from January of this year, they were at 53%. So the education that goes on behind teachers and administrators to promote breakfast and eating has helped and come a long way. The secondary school participation with breakfast does go down with age, I think for some different reasons. But knowing that there are a good population of students in this community that do not have access to food for breakfast, and they do rely upon us. Those are the students that repeatedly come in at the secondary level to eat.
They
because-
prefer the grab and go at the kiosks too, right?
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the
So
coffee.
we've
And
been
the
more
coffee.
strategic about locations for them to grab the
The
food on their
coffee,
way in, so they
yeah.
don't have to go to the other side of the building or so forth. So,
Okay, thanks.
all right. Thank you so much for putting that together tonight.
Right. So we do not have anyone signed up to speak this evening. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so all week long, Keystone Central has been hosting guests from Sweethearts and Heroes. There have been assemblies in every building, along with empathy circles that have been occurring for students and staff. The crux of the Sweethearts and Heroes message centers on 5 bully buttons that combine to form a call to action against bullying and apathy. I really wanted to thank our Director of Pupil Services, Christina Manning, along with teacher Christina Anaskanich, who put in extra effort to organize all of these events across the district this week. I had the opportunity to hear about the response to these activities. And I know that some of the principals have reached out and said, wow, that was really amazing, what we saw today and what we heard. And most moving to me was I ended up speaking with an individual student, a high school student in the hallway following an assembly. And I was just asking some follow-up questions and, what was up with that story? And told me start to finish the entire story with much detail and about the message that went along with it. So I felt that it was very meaningful to many students, and there were some great takeaways. COVID numbers. I know everybody's anxious to hear that every week. We tally those on Friday. Mark Kondo, Christina Manning, and I work on those numbers and report to PDE. Last week's number, 1 staff member, 3 elementary and 13 secondary students. Though that's pretty low compared to where anything we've seen in 2022. And this week's numbers, which will be tallied tomorrow, are trending the same way, very, very low. So we're hopeful that those numbers stay low. And again, we'll continue our mitigation efforts. We recently learned that Bucktail High School will be the recipient of an $18,000 grant from Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company. These funds will be applied to the new school scoreboard project at Dwyer Memorial Field. I wish to thank Susan Blesh and Mike Hall for exploring this grant opportunity, and obviously Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company for their generosity. And drum roll, we have graduation dates established. In February, we have dates. This is unusual, but we believe through our remote learning capabilities now that we will not have to add snow days onto the end of our year. So Bucktail graduation date will be June 1st, 2022, 6:30 p.m. at Dwyer Memorial Field. In the event of inclement weather, that ceremony will be held indoors at the same time, a date and time. For Central Mountain High School, June 2nd, 2022, 6:30 p.m. We will be at the stadium for that here at Central Mountain, but we do have a rain date for that. The students told us they would prefer to have a rain date and be outside rather than try to hold an indoor graduation. So with that in mind, we have a rain date for June 3rd. So details will be sent specifically to the families and communicated and put on our school calendar. That's everything I have for this evening.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll move on to committee reports. Finance Committee. We haven't.
Okay, we met on February 1st and we had a pretty informative discussion. And we talked about quite a few things. Susan made a nice presentation on the budget and moving stuff and how we're going to pay for things and how we're going to look down 4 years, 5 years from now. That looked pretty good. We talked about for the June meeting, needing a resolution to extend the penalty-free period. I guess we have to waive it.
Mhm.
So we'll do that in June meeting for November, December. We've done it the last 2 years, from what I understand. We talked about teacher-student ratio and asking if we can find some information about millage rates in the surrounding area, how they compare to ours. And probably the biggest that we talked about, there was about 351,000 in a committed fund we had set aside years ago for health and wellness. It's been sitting there for a long time. It's never been touched, never been used. We'd like to have a motion to uncommit $300,000 of that and move it to the facilities used for facility work, different buildings and stuff. I guess we have to move the general fund used for facilities. It would still leave 51,000 in it and some change in case we need to do something for health and welfare. That's going to take a motion to uncommit those funds. There's some talk about funding out opportunities for some different grants. I know the DCNR one was one of the favorite ones that I think we came up with a reason for that today or a purpose for that today. They're going to look into. There was talk about having a cross-country track.
Of course.
I guess it would be
Of course.
So, they were looking at something like that. There was a request, I guess, that Elizabeth had. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to use that money for that. And I guess Susan just told me, found out you could probably use it for the track field also. It's going to take a lot of work to do for the track field, but you have till April 1st to get that submitted, so. I think that's pretty much everything. I don't think I missed anything.
Policy committee did not meet. Curricular, co-curricular?
We have not met. Our February 15th meeting has been canceled. The next meeting will be March 15th, 2022, and that will be at 6:30. Just to let you know, the reason why we canceled that is because it's going to be interfering. It would actually interfere with one of our curriculum nights. So because of that, we figured, you know what, we'll just show up there and check out the curriculum.
Welcome, everyone.
Okay, and facilities?
Well, we haven't met since the work session. And I think I went over last
Last year.
time the highlights and some of the things. I mean, I can go over them again if you'd like, but
No, we're good. If there's nothing new.
no, nothing new
All right.
since last time.
Okay. I don't think there've been any changes or additions to the agenda. So, Mr. Johnston,
Okay, that I would like to make the motion to move forward for a vote and approval of the entire agenda with the exception of any items we would like to have removed for separate consideration.
I'd like to have J9 removed, please.
Okay.
oh, we need a second
Oh,
first for
I'll
the motion.
second that.
Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Roger. All right, you say J9, Butch?
J9, yes.
Okay. And we also, I believe, need K1. Any other board members want anything removed for separate consideration? Tracy?
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes,
Mr. Knopf,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes,
7 yes votes, motion passes.
okay. Now, we're looking at the separate item J9, repository property bid.
We have a motion for that, please?
Second that.
Nobody made the motion. I asked for a
Oh.
motion.
So moved.
Thank
right.
you.
Now you can say,
I'll make it and
I just have some comments on that.
Okay,
I'm going to vote against it. I don't like repository sales. The purpose is to bring them back in a tax roll. And as I said last week, and if you heard me, I guess I had some issues, that it doesn't really bring any money back on a tax roll because of the way the assessment's done. I think Susan checked with Keith Herrick. Anyways, they found out that basically what I was saying was correct. I know I talked to both of them. That if it's assessed, the property is assessed at $500, it's sold, it's $500 repository sale. It's assessed to that until it's either sold or it's reassessed. So we don't make any money off of $500. Something has to be done. You know, so the only thing I can do is make a statement that something has to be done by the county to readjust this or fix this. So
thank you.
I'm not sure if the county has the ability to do that, whether that's a county ordinance or if it's state law.
I actually think it's coming from a state statute, but I think the county has to approach the state because it's a tax issue. They're a taxing body, the governing body, so they have to go to the state and say, we need this adjusted. So it affects the county, us, and the local municipalities, and all three are involved.
Okay, any other discussion?
I agree on the principle here. However, I mean, isn't collecting tax on $200 property better than collecting nothing at all?
Actually, I don't think we're gonna get any taxes because the trailer, I don't think we get taxed on a trailer.
Well, it doesn't have something to do with whether it still has its wheels or its tongue or something like that. So this one's a moot point anyhow, but I understand the principle there. But
right.
It's just some, drew a line in the sand years ago and I'm staying on this side of it.
All
Your
right.
point's well taken, Butch.
Okay, Tracy?
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Knopf,
No,
Ms. Lynch,
Unfortunately, yes, but thank you.
Mr. Miller,
I'll join Mr. Knopf in his statement since it's not going to change the outcome and say no.
thank you.
5 yes votes, 2 no.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item K1, personnel. I so move item K1. Have a second?
Yeah. Second.
Mr. Elling, the automatic second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, Tracy?
Mrs. Donahue,
I abstain.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Knopf,
Yes,
Ms. Lynch,
Yes,
Mr. Miller,
Yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
6 yes votes and 1 abstention.
All right. And I don't believe we have anything else.
Do we, one question?
Yeah.
The item that Butch was talking about the, do we need a motion for transferring those funds?
I think it was on.
Is
The
it on
resolution-
here?
The resolution will come next month.
Well, next
Is it
one.
going to be next month?
Yeah,
Okay. Answer my question.
thank you.
I make a motion.
I have a quick question before we adjourn. Sorry.
Go
And
for
this
it,
is
Molly.
more for the facilities committee. When will we be voting on the Crabtree to do the estimates, the cost estimates for Liberty Curtain?
Hopefully
I'm-
March.
Yeah, we're hoping to bring forward, to get some information from Crabtree to be able to put a proposal up for consideration in March.
Okay, thanks.
That would just be for the study
Right.
of different options.
Can I make my motion now?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
And I'll second it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.